Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Road to Nowhere series, a series where I analyze my own classical games. In this very first video of the series, we are going to analyze a game from my most recent classical tournament called Groningen Open, held from 21st to 30th of December 2022. I really hope you will enjoy it. Before we get to the actual game, I would like to talk a little bit about how I ended up playing in Groningen over the Christmas period and what were some of, let's say, my impressions. So, as some of you might know, I'm currently dating a Dutch chess player, women FIDE Meister Maaike Ketman, and she was invited to play in this year's National Women Championship, Dutch National Women Championship. So, which was held in Groningen as well. So, as you know, every respected boyfriend, I decided to accompany her, and it made a lot of sense to do so because the championship was held alongside the Open tournament. I think it's something that's customary done in the Groningen in general in the Dutch championships. They're always held alongside Open tournaments. So I decided to join. It was kind of a new experience for me. I never played an Open tournament in the Netherlands. And this was overall my third Open tournament I've played outside of Croatia. But it was a fairly strong tournament. A lot of strong players, like around 2,400, were admitted into it. The whole group was said to be above 2,000 plus, which I think is a nice thing because, yeah, I think it's good for your development as a player to play these strong groups where you are very likely to face some stronger opponents. And yeah, it was I thought a really nice opportunity and nice tournament. I will talk about detail, maybe about some specifics or some organizational stuff that may have turned out a little bit illogical in later videos. But one peculiarity that I kind of wanted to emphasize here is that I was surprised by how young the field was. So, okay, I'm not the youngest chess player out there. I am 30, and as everybody points out, I'm getting old. But I don't think I have ever played a chess tournament where literally every opponent I faced was younger than me, and in some cases very, very significantly younger. For example, when you play the tournament in Croatia, you are very likely to face some pensioners, some 50-60-year-old players, which quite frankly don't always prepare very well, are often a little bit overrated, and are in general a desirable pairing. So it was a new experience. On one hand, it was kind of a tough experience because you are playing young and prepared players, but on the other hand, the tournament did go pretty well for me, and yeah, it kind of also helped me to break this psychological barrier and of fearing these young and underrated kids or strong kids, which is, as we will hopefully see, not always the case. So with that brief context out of the way, let's dive deep into the very first game. So, given that I was the 16th seed of the tournament that consists of 42 players, I was paired down in the first round, or I was one of the seeded players, and I faced a lower-rated opponent, a younger opponent than me, called Dan Nordenbos, rated around 2050, 2056. Now, the peculiarity about this match is that I have actually played Dan in a league match earlier that year. I think it was May or something, and the game actually ended in a draw. So it's a little bit, I mean, how often do I play in the Netherlands and then I already play against the same person twice? That was a little bit curious because even in Croatia I haven't played with some people more than one time in a classical game. So I kind of, the last time we drew, although I was a little bit better than almost losing, so I knew that he's kind of well theoretically prepared. So I decided to play the Trompowsky because I expected that he would go knight f6 after bishop to g5. I won't go into too many details about my openings in these videos because I still do want to keep some secrets, but I did do some rough preparation for potential opponents in the first round, which was possible to do because the tournament was so small, and I did check what he at least might play. So, but unfortunately, when he saw the pairings, because the pairings were announced like half an hour before the start of the tournament, he did go and do some preparation on his phone before the round, and I guess he must have expected it. He didn't want to analyze the game after the game, so I don't know. But he actually breezed out these moves and actually went for one that I could consider is particularly good for black, or pretty decent for black. So I played this line h4, which was given in Kamil Plichta in his course on Trompowsky and Chessable, and after c5, d5, queen b6, knight d2, h6, bishop f4, he played this line queen to b2, knight e4, queen b4, The point is that, okay, you are temporarily sacrificing a knight, but if I take it, then you have this double attack queen to b4, and these pieces are lined up on the horizontally on the 4th rank. So if I move the knight, then I lose the bishop. If I move the bishop, then I lose the knight. So the best move here is c3, queen e4, e3, and now you get this weird position where you are down a pawn, but you have opened your b file, where the queen is a little bit exposed in the center, and yeah, where white might get some time by playing like move like f3, bishop d3, and so on and so forth. Once again, I don't want to go into too many details. You can check Camille's Trompowsky course, which will be linked below this video. So after d6, f3, queen g6 was played. This was already a little bit of a new move for me, because queen f5 is the main move here, although it makes some sense actually to go queen g6 and try to attack the pawn and play bishop to d3. And here I play this move king to f2. It is also given, I think, after queen to f5, but the idea is simple. You are protecting the pawn and preparing bishop d3, basically. Kind of. And yeah, you might be wondering, okay, but aren't you like, what kind of game is this? Like, you are just losing castling, right? But this is like how modern theory works, in my opinion. You can violate the principles for very concrete reasons, and due to the fact that white is kinda stabilized in the center and has some development advantage, means that I can permit to play a little bit more slowly, because there is no immediate danger to my king, and my king is actually performing quite a useful role. And here he played queen to f6, I guess sidestepping this bishop to the 3 line and also attacking the pawn. And this confused me a little bit. I wasn't sure how to proceed here, because I thought if I defend this pawn with the queen, then I'm not sure my queen can be more useful here on this square on d1. Maybe it can go to a4 later or something. So I didn't quite want to move the queen and defend the pawn with this. I also didn't want to play knight to e2 to block my bishop, although the computer does say this is the best move. So I ended up playing rook c1, which is a little bit strange, because okay, I'm playing the rook on a very passive square, but I did remember that somewhere in Camille's course this rook c1 was a thing, although in a very different situation where black plays the fianchetto, and then it makes a little bit more sense. So yeah, I wasn't too happy with this decision, but I thought, okay, it does make some sense. Obviously, you would like to get the rook to b1 as soon as possible, which is why you should play knight e2 here. Anyway, he played knight to d7, rook c1, knight to d7. Now, this move is, I guess, logical, because you kind of have to start developing the queen side, and I also consider that he might go for g6 with the idea of bishop g7, but I'm not sure. I think knight d7, there's nothing wrong, and I think he was spending a lot of time here, but he was finding quite reasonable moves. I think this whole plan that he went on for in the game is very, very reasonable. And here I spent a lot of time trying to calculate some cheeky tricks with bishop to g5, with the point being h5, h5. I'm hitting the queen and also attacking the rook, so I win material. But the problem is that he doesn't have to take, he can only move the queen. And at minimum, I saw that after queen to e5, I don't have any better moves than repeating. And furthermore, there is also this queen g6, bishop d3, and then some f5 stuff going on. I mean, it doesn't look too appealing for a human player, but computer says it's fine, and yeah, I think it's more than reasonable. Especially, we will see this motif bishop g5, queen g6 a lot later in the game. So I went g4. It seemed sensible to me to gain some space, restrict the pieces, and once again, I'm not developing the pieces yet, but since the position is fairly stable and center is closed, or at least I thought it would be, you can permit to play this kind of extravagant way and gain some more space on the king side, potentially introduce some g5 ideas, because this queen is a little bit short on squares. And after knight to b6, I didn't expect this knight to b6. I thought he would go like knight e5 or maybe g6, but okay, knight b6 is actually not such a bad move. And here I didn't consider anything else than a4, just kicking the knight away, because I wasn't sure what he is exactly doing. And here he surprised me. I didn't anticipate this move e5, which he played next, which is a fairly good move, because if I move the bishop, then there is problems with bishop to g4. It felt wrong. Yeah, if I wasn't sure what else to do. Like I was considering bishop g5 here, but then he just sidesteps with the queen, and if I play bishop d3, he plays f5, and my bishop is trapped. Like I lose a piece. So that felt kind of wrong, and it is wrong. So I wasn't sure what else to do. I had to play d takes c6, which I think is a good decision. It's a little bit unfortunate because I really don't want to develop this bishop with tempo and kind of open up the position, but the alternatives were worse. I didn't have anything else to do. And this kind of highlights some drawback of placing the king weirdly on f2, because these tactics start to appear. It wouldn't be possible if my king was castled, for example, but you have to give something to lose something. So after taking bishop e6, I played bishop to b5. It would be logical to play a5 here to kick this knight. But after knight to d5, I wasn't sure what I'm doing here. It turns out that after bishop to b5, this is just extremely good for white, whether he goes king d8 or king to e7, but during the game it seemed a little bit messy. I don't know why. I like, now that I look this position, it's obvious that you have all the space, all the pieces. Knight e2 is coming, and you can do basically whatever you want. You don't need to fear that much here. But yeah, during the game sometimes things are a little bit messy, and I wasn't 100% sure. Which is, yeah, it reveals like my weakness, for example, in evaluating positions and playing sometimes with too much fear, so to speak. So probably a5 would have to be played, then he goes back, and then we have a completely different game. So after bishop to b5, he played knight to d7. I also wasn't sure about other moves, like bishop to d7, for example, although it did feel wrong, but knight d7 felt reasonable. Now I played knight to e2, a6. Now I basically have to take. I mean, I can maybe go bishop d3, but then I feel, yeah, I'm not sure whether I want to keep these pieces. Maybe d5 happens or something, and it doesn't look too good. So bishop d7, and now I play c4. And this was the reason why I gave up my bishop. I'm preparing to activate this knight and clamp down on this d5 square. Because if I do anything else, h5, and then at some point he goes like d5 and gets his pieces, then I'm not only a pawn down, but he has the bishop pair, and my knight is just doesn't have any good squares. So this was a must. And here, after bishop c6, he offered me a draw. And this is something that I often see at all levels. People just offering draws in random positions. And okay, he was a little bit down on time here. I had much more time here than him. I don't know how much. I did note my time, but I didn't yet enter all these things in my I didn't enter this info in the game. But I would want to, like, first of all, this position is completely unclear. Like, he's not even worse. So there is literally no reason to offer me a draw. Second of all, I mean, you are limiting your opportunity to improve at chess if you offer draws in these positions. Like, irrespective of how this ends up, even if you lose, which in the end he did, like, you're getting invaluable experience of playing this position, which will be invaluable whether you play it against anybody, but especially against somebody who is nominally stronger. I mean, that's very debatable, but I was higher rated. So I really think that was also a psychological mistake by him, because when I saw that he's offering a draw, I knew that he is not too happy with the position, kind of, or that at least it was that he's, you know, not having this killer instinct to go and play for the win. So yeah, it kind of helped me, like, I helped me my mood and my optimism, and also it was, I think, a psychological concession on his end. And yeah, in general, I think it's just not a good thing to do also for if you want to develop as a player, especially if you are playing against higher rated players, because there's not much for you to lose. Like, even if you lose, you lose a few rating points and lost, and if you don't play it out, you lose a valuable experience to play this position. And actually, still think he had quite reasonable chances here. So of course I refused this, and objectively this position is equal. I thought I'm not risking that much here, because in the worst case scenario, if I get knight d5 and then he exchanges, I thought that my bishop would be better than his bishop. So after queen to e6, which is a good move because it kind of sidesteps some knight d5 ideas, or it attacks the c4 pawn, and now if I jump with the knight to d5, then he can take and I have to recapture with the pawn. This is not so bad, to be completely honest, for white, but in principle, when your opponent has a hole or a weak square, you would almost always like to have a piece here rather than a pawn. So I played queen to d3, realizing that yes, this pawn is for now defended, although it does make it a little bit difficult for me to execute knight d5 because this pawn might be hanging. And here he played bishop e7, and now I was a little bit hesitating what to do, because I didn't want to play like the natural move rook h to d1, because then I lose the pawn, and I didn't want to give up this pawn as well. I also didn't want to play knight d5 as mentioned because I didn't want to get the pawn here, although it's once again then you open the b file and you have some counterplay. So I ended up playing h5, just removing this pawn that was hanging. And here he played rook d8, which felt a little bit wrong because it gives me time to do what I want here. Maybe he could have played more like castles here, and then for example rook h to d1. It seems more reasonable to get the king here, although it's not entirely clear, but the course of the game will show that it's possible. And also there are some like bishop f6 potentially ideas here that I wasn't too curious. The idea is to force my knight to jump, and if I play queen to d6, then he takes on c4 and it's like unclear. Or maybe just exchanges queens, I'm not sure. But also if I jump, then I'm once again, it's not maybe so bad for me, but I really didn't want to take with the pawn here. But this rook d8, it felt a bit, no, he's obviously intending to play d5, but now I play rook h to d1 and I'm controlling this square sufficiently. And here he played bishop f6, trying to force this, but under worse circumstances, because after knight d5, he took bishop d5. To be fair, I wasn't sure what happens if he castles here, because knight c7 was threatened. I thought that, you know, I may have to play a5 just to remove this hanging pawn, and then the position is unclear, because this pawn might potentially be weak, this bishop is kinda kept on the board, my king might potentially be not too safe, and I didn't see a clear way through, because he has this weakness, but it's not so easy to get here. My pieces are in general kind of nicely placed, and I don't think I'm risking that much here, but it's still a game, and anything could have happened here. But after bishop d5, I was a little bit happy, because now after queen d5, I've gotten rid of this knight, which was strong, but I've also gotten rid of this good bishop, and now b7 is also weak, and d6 is also weak. Still, he should have probably played something like bishop to e5 here. The thing is, if I take on b7, then it becomes very unclear, because, yeah, sure, he can take here, then castle probably, and then we play this position where my king is very weak, his pieces are no coming, and maybe there is some d5 happening. Okay, maybe he should also defend this pawn, I'm not sure. I didn't analyze this game with the engine, these were just more like my thoughts yet. As I explained will explain in the video dedicated to analyzing games, I usually prefer not to do a thorough engine analysis. I did some basic checks. But I don't want to do thorough engine analysis before I enter all my thoughts and before I do like a commentary writing on my own, which I didn't yet get to doing for this game. You could make an argument that should have before making the video, but it's more like conveying my thoughts and checking the game with some key moments rather than like being super ultra accurate. That's the approach I will have in this series. And here, I think he made a decisive mistake, which for sure is a decisive mistake that I know. So as I said, he should have not exchanged queens. He should have probably castled or given up the pawn and tried to muddy the waters, but he played queen to d5. And after rook to d5, okay, I am a pawn down, but my pawns are all on white squares. It's very important that I have this chain from f3 to h5, and because in this bishop endgames with same color, usually it is very, very good for one side to have the pawns on the opposite color, on the squares of the opposite color of your bishop, because simply because then my bishop, their bishop can't attack these pawns, and they are not restricting my own bishop. So I have sort of a good bishop, whereas he has a bad bishop. And moreover, he has this target on d6, and it will very likely that this pawn will fall. So he played bishop e7. And now I first tried to include rook to b1, which I'm not sure if was necessary, but if I played rook c to d1, then I wasn't sure about something like king to d7, rook to c5, and for example, rook c8. Or something like that, or even this endgame, bishop d6, bishop d6, rook d6, king to c7. I wasn't 100% sure. Probably it's still good for me, but I wanted to play rook to b1 to force rook to d7, and now after rook to d1, he doesn't have this idea of king d7, king c7. He played king to d8 here, but now I didn't want to once again go into the endgame. There is this principle of not hurrying. I'm not sure if I should have not hurried here, but I played e4 here. Now that the bishop is not on f6, there is no bishop d4 as a response, and I just want to play e5 and exploit this pin on the d7 rook. And he played f6, but I just played e5 anyway, because he can't move this d pawn because his rook is hanging. So f e5, bishop e5, and now I thought I'm getting a better version of the endgame because g7 is under the attack, d6 is under the attack, and it felt to me that his position is close to collapsing, which, okay, at this point I did check with the engine and it's true. And after bishop to f6, bishop f6, I thought this is the cleanest, bishop f6. I think we are at a point where everything wins. gf6, rook d6, rook d6, rook d6, king e7. I decided to play rook to b6. This seemed to be the simplest because I'm either forcing him to go full passive, which then should be, and then I'll just bring my king up, or I'm winning that pawn. So he tried f5, rook b7, king f6, rook c7, attacking the c5 pawn, fg4, king e5. And here I really didn't want to allow any counterplay. So this was the first round of the tournament. I knew that I was winning, and I got a little bit nervous when it comes to converting the position. I wanted to do it in the safest way possible, so I decided to play king to e3. Rook to c5 was probably possible, but then after king to f4, I didn't want to calculate the consequences of his activation. I thought this would be also winning. I just have too many pawns and my rook is still active, but I felt more messy. So I just played king to e3 to prevent his king from going anywhere. He played king d6, rook a7, king e5. And now I decided to play rook d7 again. Once again, rook a6 is probably more than winning, but I really didn't want to calculate the consequences of rook b8, rook h6, rook to b3, and then like king to d2, king d4 or something. I knew that I have to be winning with all these passed pawns, but you know, this activity was a little bit unnerving to me, and I wanted to play in a little bit more cleaner way. And I thought that, you know, winning in the safest way possible is usually the right approach. So after rook d7, king e6, so I just basically am threatening rook d5 here to push this king away. He played king e6, rook d5, and now he played rook c8 because he kinda had to go passive now. And now I got what I wanted. I played king f4. He decided to wait, and now I played g5, simply creating a distant passed pawn. And moreover, this was kinda over. a5, king g5, rook g7, king h6, rook g4, rook c5, king d6, rook a5, rook c4, rook a6, king e7, king g7, rook f4, and here I played h6. By the way, if he plays if he played rook g4, then I calculated that rook g6, I can rook a4 and h6 transpose this into a one endgame. But after rook f4, it was all over. h6, rook f7, king g6, rook f1, h7, rook g1, king h6, rook h1, rook g7, and now I'll play rook g6 next, and I'm just basically winning. So yeah, this was a very nervy, very kind of, you know, I was a little bit, you know, very tense. It was very tense up to a certain point. It's not, you know, I mean, it's a good game because I have been start playing very safely, very positionally lately, and also in this tournament. And yeah, I'm not too happy when I have to give up pawns, which I think is a bad and limiting approach to chess. I think you should play the position and realize that often, even when pawn down, you can get sufficient compensation, as in this game. But yeah, up to this point, it was very tense and unclear, and I thought he was playing really well up to a certain point, but here he kind of lost the plot here, kind of after his draw offer, and especially after he exchanged queens. Like, he really should, this was the critical moment, this sequence when I jumped knight to d5 and he decided to exchange everything. This basically 2-3 moves decided this game, and afterwards it was a little bit smooth sailing and the outcome of the game was never in doubt. So yeah, it was kind of nice to start the tournament on a high note and beat an opponent with whom I have drawn in the past, and who I think ended up having quite a good tournament and is maybe a little bit underrated. If I can convey anything from this game to potential viewers and maybe to opponent who is watching this, I don't know if he will, but who knows, please, like, get away from this habit of offering draws. I always, as a coach, I always tell it to my students, especially on the very lower rating end, that there's no sense to doing so. Especially in a position like this where you are like, it's clear that the position is unclear. Like, maybe if you are like very much worse or losing, you might try to do so, but yeah, in these kinds of positions when there's a lot to play for, or where the game is really only beginning or reaching its critical stage, I think it's really like not good for your development as a chess player and for your psychology and mentality. I think trying to nurture this killer instinct and just to play for a win, almost no matter what, or especially if the position requires it, is a much better approach. So yeah, this concludes this first video from the Road to Nowhere series. Please do let me know what you think below in the comments and how you like the format and what I can improve or change. Every feedback is welcome. If you like it, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and feel free to check some other of my videos. Stay tuned and see you soon in the future. Bye bye.